Good morning. What I'm going to do here today is construct a title block. And a title block is something that you use to simply showcase your work. There's some reasons for doing it. One reason is, and this is a couple examples of different title blocks. In this case, we're looking at what you would see, what's going to be the bottom portion of your title block. But in this case, if you look on these small letters, you can see it gives a drawing scale. In this case, it says 1:1. Since we're printing on a size piece of paper, which is 8.5 by 11, what that does is allows us to scale it smaller. So if this was a house, for instance, that doesn't fit on a piece of paper, we still draw the house full size in AutoCAD, but we can shrink it down to a specified size by using a title block. Okay, so in this case, you can also see these title blocks at another level allow you to provide some more information, such as the sheet number if it's a multi-page drawing, a company name, etc., the name of the designer, and everything else. And the other thing that this does is creates a way for you to protect your work as far as making it, I guess, kind of like legally yours. Anyhow, that's what we're going to do. It's a very, very simple thing, mostly just line offsets. Ours is going to look something like this, and this is just a simple, kind of a student style title block. In my architecture class, they'll go ahead and do a slightly different one as well. And this is something really you should only have to do once or twice, and then you can just modify it from there on out. Okay. So what I've done here is kind of giving you a heads up on what this is going to look like overall, minus the text. So you see some text in here, but these are just offset reminders, so that as I draw this on the right, I will refer back to this, and you can see. But basically, we're just going to draw an 8.5 by 11 rectangle. And here you can see with an offset of 0.3, which gets us to this rectangle, this inner rectangle. And then once we do that, we're going to do a couple of 0.3 offsets to obtain this line and this line. And the numbers across the top show the offset distances, like the first one being 1 for width, which gets us to that line, and so on and so forth. Okay, let me just slide this over a little bit. So first step in doing this, whoops, I wanted to grab this and this. First step in doing this is to draw a simple box, okay? And some people go about this different ways. Some people like to draw the box at, with lines, say a line at 8.5 and then another line at 11 and everything else. Let's use the rectangle tool. So coming up here in your your ribbon, you would just go ahead and click the rectangle tool. It asks you for a base point, okay? And I'm gonna move this so you can see my command window down here. When you use the rectangle tool, there's only one way you can use it, okay? You can see it rubber bands, but this has to be exactly the size of an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Or in this case, we're gonna say 11 by 8.5, because 8.5 by 11 comes out portrait. We want ours to come out landscape. So what do I have to do? Pay attention to my command window so you know what to type in on your own. You're going to type in at, right? The at symbol, which is shift 2. And we're going to type in the width, which is 11. So at 11, comma, 8.5. So take one glance down here at my command window, at 11, comma, 8.5, hit enter, and you have a rectangle, okay? Now, next step, we have to create, and I put this number down here, a 0.3 offset. We're going to use that number a couple of times, 0.3 inches. So what I'm going to do is you can use offset up here on the ribbon, or you can use offset by hitting O spacebar. What I'm going to do is type in 0.3, or you could type in 0.3. I'm going to click my rectangle, and as I move inward, that's where I want it. I don't want to move it outward. You have to move it inward for this, okay? Because this is going to be a visible border. If I put it out this way, I'll never see the border. So move the offset inward, and you're good there. Now, what I have is two joined rectangles, but I want to do my Robin Hood trick, right? I want to steal from the rich and give to the poor. So I already have a bottom line, which would be really helpful because I need this parallel line and this parallel line for my text boxes. So what I'm going to do first is click this, Come up here in your ribbon, right under erase, you have a exploded cube. The explode tool will go ahead and break those connections at the corners. So now that's a separate thing, and that line's a separate thing, and you're good to go. You can see right here the height of these boxes where text will go. Okay, keep in mind what we're looking for is places to put our text. The offsets are 0.3, so I go O space again. And look at this, on the command window down here, as you can see, 0.3 was remembered because it was the last thing I used. So all I have to do is hit space or enter, click this line, come up one, click the new line you just made, and come up one more. So this looks exactly like this, okay? Now, I can see here, I showed you a series of offsets. These numbers right here are all offsets based on this right line. So in other words, I'm going to make a 1-inch offset, which gets me to here. When I'm done with that, I'm going to make a 1.5-inch offset, a second 1.5-inch offset, and then a 3.2-inch offset. So that's all I have to do, with the exception of trimming out the line that's going to cruise through this box, okay? So let's go ahead and do this. Offset 1. Bring this over and trim that out. Okay? I'm going to leave the tails of these lines sticking up into outer space so I can just go ahead and trim them all at once and not have to deal with little lines down here. Second offset, 1.5. I need to do it twice. So come in here, offset 1.5. Right? I have to type that in because last time it was set for 1. 1.5, grab another 1.5-inch offset. And one last offset, what was it? It was 3.2 over here. So now I'm going to come back in, O space 3.2. Why did I say 3.2? Because that is this remaining distance from here to here cut in half, okay? This line could move because your name is going to end up going over here. And if you have a really long name, you might have to go ahead and slide it over a little bit, okay? So this right here is going to be reserved for the drawing title. This right here is going to be reserved for the sheet number. And this right here is going to be reserved for the scale. And then the final thing is this going to be reserved for your personal logo of some sort, okay? So now what I can do is trim all of this. Trim, and voila. So I'm set right there, okay? Now we're going to add some text to this. So I've got my text on my drawing template already formatted to be what I think is going to be the correct size. For text, I'm going to hit the drop down under the A, and I always use multi-line. I guess I could use single line in this, but I'm going to click multi-line, and you can see my crosshairs turn into a ABC. So what it's asking me for is to create a text box. And in this case, watch where I'm going to use my text box. I'm going to draw it from the top left of this upper box to the bottom right. And now I get an editable text box, okay? This is very much like Microsoft Word or Google Docs or any type of word processing software, okay? I can change a text size right here, but I really never do that. I usually scale my text. And up here, there's two things I want to adjust. I want to hover over the little icon until I get to center. You can see now my cursor moved to center. And then I also want to hit the drop down under justification and change this to middle center. And what that's done is it's centered it between the top and bottom lines. And now all I have to do is type in my title. So in this case, I'm going to type in designer. Okay. And I can click that. When I'm done, there's a closed text editor. This is on 2020, 2021. Otherwise, you just have a small X. Okay. Now I look at this and I think that text is a little bit big. It's filling out that space a little bit too much, okay? So I want to scale it. And in order to scale it, I want to have a defined base point. Sometimes you could just pick the middle of the word, but since I already justified it top to bottom, I think this is going to work better. So why did I draw that construction line? Because, so I'm going to right-click scale. After I selected the word, I'm going to select midpoint. Okay, let me go back a step because I might have scaled it. This is going to have a midpoint, right? It has a defined midpoint. So since everything was set up centered, If I select the midpoint of this line as my base point, nothing's going to shift left, right, up, or down. Okay. So I'm going to select the word, right click. Okay. I get a pop-up and I'm going to select scale. Select your midpoint for the base point, right? Follow the instructions down here in the command window. Now I could manually scale this just by dragging, which I suppose is fine, but sometimes it'll want to pop onto object snaps and mess you up. I took a guess and I said 0.7 is a scale factor when it asked me to type in a scale factor, and it came out great. I think that's about kind of what we would want to see. All right. Now, my thing is use a lazy method. If you don't have to go ahead and repeat that process, don't. What I can do is go select it, copy selection, and what I can do now is drop this here, here, and here. All right. I could even drop it here and then snug it up later. So there's two options. One is I could drop it and go ahead and change the word and reduce the size, or I could do it one more time. Since these boxes are the same, maybe I'll go ahead and do that. So what I'll do is just repeat the same process. I'm going to go ahead and draw my text, go back to title block, go ahead and draw my text here, multi-line text. I'm going to select the two corners, right, of the box, centered, justification, middle center, just like I did before. This time I'm going to type in sheet. Okay, and sheet is a little bit big, so I scale my text down. Now the one option about, or the ability to scale your text with the, oops, let's get rid of that. The ability to scale your text with the text editor when you have your text open is definitely one way you could do it, or you could do my way, which is just go ahead and select it, hit scale, select your midpoint, type in 0.7, and now you are still centered and everything looks great. Okay. And now that that's set, I can just go ahead and copy that, right? In my base point, you can see is the upper left corner. Since these boxes on the right are the same as the boxes on the left, everything has centered itself. Okay. So, designer, I'm going to go ahead and type my name. My name is Rob. Oh, what's the problem? Everything should be in all caps. Okay. Use my alias, Marietta. Okay. Or I could type in my real name. Right. Designer. Okay, so that's that. But I got to change this. What is this? This would be, you could either call it, in my class, you could call it project or you could call it drawing. I'm going to call it project because it may be not just a drawing, it might be a whole comprehensive engineering project with a series of drawings. Okay. Now, in this case, our first project is multi-view 1. Okay. So all I'm doing is selecting this sheet. That's exactly what I wanted it to say. But in this case, see what I do is just double click on it. It brings up my text editor, highlight what you want to change, and type in 1 of 1. Kind of a rule of thumb in formatting words in engineering drawing and any kind of drafting and design. If you have a word between two numbers, you would lowercase it. Okay. Also, if I put my last name on it, okay, I have a capital G in my name, so I have a MCGAHEY, right? That would be my actual name right there. Okay. Anyhow, what we're gonna do is, and I don't care if my name is on there. Here, I want to give the person a assigned drawing scale. Okay. So I want to tell them what the scale is. Change that to scale, and let's say this could be anything, right? This could be 1/4 inch, right? 1/4 inch is equal to 1 foot. That would be a common scale in architecture. This is in my engineering class. 1, 2, and I always put a space between the number and the colon. So 1 to 2 just happens to be what our first drawing is printed at. Okay. Now this area right here is for my students. What I tell them to do is to go and open a drawing, okay, something that they did or something that they're that they're proud of, that they've created. Just looking for something. Um, let's see, tech ad logo example Trojan. Okay. So here's a logo that I did. I copied a Trojan yacht logo. This was the original. This was mine. And what I do, if you ever want to copy, and you're going to have to do this a couple of times with creating your title block. So let's say I worked really hard on something and I want to make this like my personal company logo, let's say, or my personal student logo. Select it, right click, go to clipboard, go to copy with base point, and I would just pick somewhere approximate in the center of it. Okay. Come back here. I don't know how big it's going to be because I don't remember how big I drew it originally. Right click, clipboard, paste. Okay. So now I have to take I have to scale it or take like an educated guess at about how big that is. So I'm going to go ahead and click it, right click, scale. Right here, I'm going to type in 0.125. That's my guess at a scale factor. So I'm thinking if I made it about 8 times smaller, it would fit nicely in there. Whoop, it's still a little bit big. So now I can use kind of a more logical number. What if I said 0.8? So I'm going to make it 80% of its original size. And move it, and that fits really nicely. In this case, I'm not going to worry about any kind of justification or anything else, okay? So this is it. Go back as you need to through, if you're doing this, if you're making an identical text block or title block to this. Here again, look to the left, like where I did in the beginning of this video as I'm panning around. Remember, the one thing you do have to do after you make this rectangle is you have to come up and use your explode tool up here so you can isolate this line and this line, which are the ones that we use to make all of our parallel copies from. Okay. And that is it.